What's up, VideoFort Nation? I'm Magic Bard, and for today I'm going to be showing you guys how to create a hyper reality scene. Now, we're not going to get super in depth. It's not a really intense advanced tutorial, but if you've never really used After Effects, I really highly encourage you to check out the tutorial we posted last week on how to use the camera tracker to create a 3D camera inside of After Effects. You'll need to know that in order to do this tutorial, or at least to make this a little bit easier on you. With that being said, I don't want to say too much about it. I really want to jump into it. So before, I want to give you guys some shout outs to Fred, Francisco, and Tienon. Really appreciate the love, guys. Thanks for checking out our stuff, and love to see you guys making your own videos, posting on social media. Tag us in them at VideoFort or hashtag VideoFort on Instagram, and I'll check out your stuff and say what up. Now, with that being said, if you're new to VideoFort, hit that subscribe button and hit the little bell icon right next to it, so that way you'll be notified whenever we put out a new tutorial every single week. That's enough from me. Now let's jump into this tutorial.
So first I want to say that if you haven't seen the basic 3D camera tracking tutorial that we did last week, a few days ago, definitely check that out beforehand so you get a better understanding of how to add these elements into your scene. In this tutorial I'm just going to show you how to create the elements, and then I'll assume that you already know how to use the 3D tracker from there. So I'll just briefly go through it really quickly and then show you how to create these elements, hoping that it kind of inspires you to create your own stuff inside of it, and try to check out some other hyper reality and augmented reality films to give you more inspiration and ideas on what to add to a scene. I would definitely say check out Blade Runner, because the new and improved Blade Runner is coming out in December, I believe, of this year. So yeah guys, let's try it out and get into it. So first, what I'm going to do is pause this and add my scene into a new composition. So I need to find that. Okay, so I've got my clip right here, and I'm going to drag it into a new comp. Okay, so create my composition with my scene, and as you can see, it's very basic. I just walk into the frame, or walk into my scene. I use my finger to pretend like I'm going to recharge my batteries, and then look around at the augmented reality stuff that's going on. So let me kind of show you how to create this Katsumoto text that I created up here. And for any of you that know what I'm referencing with Katsumoto, leave it in the comments and I'll give you a shout out for the first person. Alright, so let's add the camera 3D tracker into this. So I'm going to go to my tracker controls, and if you don't see that, just go to window and hit that tracker so you can see your tracker window, and click on track camera. Okay, just make sure your layer selected when you click that, and it'll analyze your whole footage and create a 3D camera. So I'm going to fast forward through this part. Okay guys, so once you've got your whole scene tracked, what you can do is, with your layer selected, just click on that 3D camera tracker tool, and then you will start to see all these points all over your footage. And what you want to do is okay, so right now when we create this Katsumoto text, I want it to be somewhere in this area. Now what I can do is, let me make this a little bigger. If you look really closely, you can see these little dots all over the place, and that's what After Effects has used as tracking points to create this data. So what I want to do is try to find a plane, and that's what this red circle target look is. It's a plane showing you where you're going to put your text. So this plane right here looks good to me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and hit that create text in camera. So it'll create a text on that plane, as you can see right here that says text, and it'll be stuck to our little structure right here. So as I scrub through, you can see that my text is on the structure the whole time. So that's good. We like that. Now, what you're probably saying is, Magic Bard, I want the text to be looking up like this. So really what you would want is a plane that looks like that flat, but it's looking a little hard to find that. Another way you can create a plane is by dragging and selecting dots like this, and it'll create a plane right there. Now this is not what I want. So what I'm going to do is select my text. Since it looks like it's on the roof, right? So really all I have to do is rotate it upwards. So I'll hit my W key and then rotate the X axis up until my text is looking right at me, like that. And cool. So now we have our text, and I can just double click it and type in capital K, Katsumoto. Okay, and that's the name of our building. So I can always double check to make sure that it's stuck on the right plane by scrubbing through, and it looks like it is. Cool. Now the next part I want to do is maybe scale this down a bit. So I'm going to bring this down and then kind of center it. So whenever you move elements in this 3D world, you always want to move them by using these axis arrows. Okay, so move it on the X axis, the Y axis, up and down, and the Z. Don't click it and drag it around, otherwise it'll no longer be in the position that you want it to be in, right? So I'm going to Command Z to put it back into place, and then I'm going to change the color of this to red so we can see it a little better. Okay, cool. So that's the first step, creating our text in our 3D world. Now what I want to do is, I'll just trim this down to about here, just so we don't have to worry about working this whole composition. And what I'm going to do is duplicate this layer, so Command D, and then on this bottom layer I'm going to make it blue. Okay, and I'm going to create a blue outline. So with the outline color selected, I'm going to hit that eyedropper and make it blue as well, and then maybe turn up that stroke to maybe 4. Okay, nice and solid stroke. And let me zoom in here so I can see it a little better. Use my hand tool. And then I'm going to push it back into Z space a bit. Okay, maybe that's it. Alright, so now this kind of adds a 3D looking text, because you've got two, and let me fit this back in. You've got two elements up here. You've got the red one, which is a little bit closer to camera, aka our eyesight or our point of view, and then you have the blue layer, okay, and we can name that blue, which is a little bit farther, so whenever you move around you can sort of see that. Now we're going to do another thing. I'm going to connect this blue, okay, by using the pick whip tool. I'm going to click drag it and connect it to my top Katsumoto red. Let me just name that so we're all very clear on what's going on here. And then you can see the parent tool. It says that it's connected to our red layer. Okay, now let's add some animation to this. So playhead at the beginning, I'm going to hit P. Okay, I'm going to keyframe that, and then I'm going to bring it out maybe a second long, and then zoom it towards camera. So with the Z axis selected, I'm going to hold down the shift button and then bring it towards us to about right there. Okay, and that will be our animation. And let me just select both of these keyframes and drag it out maybe 15 frames, I would say, so that we have about 15 frames of it just static, and then it zooms out. Okay, now as it's zooming out, I want it to fade away as well. So with both layers selected, I'm gonna hit T for my opacity and keyframe that. I'm gonna hit U so I can see where my position keyframes are, and then as it gets close to camera, I'm going to fade it out, so 0%. Okay, so now we just faded it out to 0 and we're looking good. So because the text will no longer be there, we can also trim these layers down. So with both of them selected, hold down the Option key and the end bracket tool, and that will trim them down right to wherever your playhead is. So cool, that's looking good. Next step, what I want to do is select both of these position keyframes, right click, and sorry, you can't see that. Let me drag this up. Okay, right click, keyframe assistance, and ease. Okay, now I will select our graph editor so we can see those position keyframes. And this is, let me zoom in here so we can see them a little better. This is kind of what's happening with our position as it's coming out and getting closer to camera. Now what we want to do is have it slowly move towards us, and then the closer it gets towards us, it's moving faster. So we need to create a arc that looks like this. So what this is doing is it's an exponential graph, right? So it's slowly moving closer, and then it's faster and faster and faster. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. So I'm gonna hit B right here as in boy, and then N, and then I'm gonna hit that preview button so we can see what we just created. Okay, so you can see what's going on with the text right here, and that is looking pretty good. Okay, cool. So now that the text is gone, you're saying, all right, we still need text there, right? So what we're going to do is duplicate this. Okay, so let's just close these guys down, and let's duplicate them. So with both of them, with both of your text layers selected, Command D that, and then drag both of those up. Okay, so this is our next layer, and I'm gonna select all of them and just hit P so I know where my position is. Actually U, hit U so we can see where our opacity is, and we're going to take this guy, and right about when it starts to fade away, we are going to fade in this text. Okay, our text from behind. So it's fading away, and then we will have this one fade in. So let's line this up so that the beginning of the position movement starts when our other text is already gone. And then what we're going to do is set a keyframe for the opacity. So just select the opacity, and it'll set a keyframe for both of the layers as long as they're both selected. And then bring it to the very beginning and bring that opacity down to 0. So then that way it'll go from 0 to 100 and fade in like that. Okay, so let's see that one more time. It fades in, and we have the Katsumoto coming close to camera. And then you guys can do that as many times as you want by selecting both of the layers, Command D, and bring them up on top, and then line them up again. So hit U and line them up to the position when the position starts. Okay, and so on and so forth. Now you've got a cool little text that's animating in the scene, and it's stuck to our 3D camera. So we've got a cool little action going on here. Okay, guys, so what I'll do is just keep creating that, duplicate it as many times as you want, and then say you've done it 6 or 7 times or however long your scene is. The next step I would do is select all of your text layers, go to layer, pre-compose. Okay, so you're going to pre-compose them as the Katsumoto text. Hit enter, and then so when you pre-compose something, it'll no longer be stuck to your 3D camera, as you can see right here. Now, all you have to do is select this collapse transformations tool, and boom, it'll be back to our 3D tracking data, right? Okay, cool. So now we're in here. Now let's add some effects to this text layer. And remember guys, when you're creating these augmented reality scenes, you can really do this to all of your elements. So first thing I'll do is maybe add some grain. Okay, so type in add grain into your effects and presets, drag that onto your layer, and then play with the settings until it looks about right to you. So I would say maybe the intensity goes to 2 or 3. And then you can really look at it and say that, you know, I don't really see much at 2, so I'll hit 3. And I actually see nothing on 3. So, oh yeah, make sure your viewing mode is at final output. Okay, so now you're seeing a little bit, right? And to really show you guys what's going on here, I'll just turn it up to maybe 6 or something. And yeah, you see it. So, you know, this may be a little too much, but you know, it's a personal preference taste. I'll go back down to 3. And then also another thing you can do is drop the opacity for these layers, because in an augmented reality scene, I wouldn't think that everything is 100% opaque, right? So yeah, I'll just drop it down to like 90%. That's good enough. And okay, what else could we add to it? Maybe add a wave warp. Okay, so drag that onto your Katsumoto text layer, and yeah, that's way too much. So maybe drop it down to noise. Okay, so you're going to set your wave type to noise, and then you're going to control the wave height. But first, let's make that wave width to 10, because 40 is too much. And then we're going to drop this height down. Let's see, maybe, geez, even 5 is too much. Go with 2. Okay, now you can turn that speed up to probably 5, and that'll just move it around. And then what we're going to do is alt click. Okay, so hold down the option or alt key on your keyboard and click on that wave height keyframe stopwatch tool, and we're going to type in an expression here. So type in wiggle, okay, and maybe 0.2 and 5, and then end parentheses, and then hit the enter key on your keyboard. And what that'll do is wiggle the height of this effect to turn it up 5 pixels, or whatever you would call this, 5 units up and down. Okay, every 0.2 seconds. Okay, 0.2 times a second. So not a lot, but still sometimes it looks like it's too much. Let's see. You know, 5 can probably be too much. I'll go with 2, and then that looks better. You know, you don't want to mess up the effect too much, but this wave warp adds something to the look, which is what we like. Okay, cool. So we've got our text on there, and now one more effect I'd like to add to our AR augmented reality elements is a glow. Okay, so type in glow and then just drag that onto there, and usually the default glow looks good enough. And then in that case, I would hit T for opacity, and you can even bring down the opacity a little bit more, so maybe 80%. And then now that we have this glow, it looks like it's almost like the text is being projected out from a projector somewhere, which is cool. And I can turn that off to show you the difference on what's happening here. Okay, so that's cool. I like that. Default settings are good enough for me. You can play around with the radius and intensity to get exactly what you want. But yeah, this looks good to me. Okay, cool. So we've created our text, and this is basically the effects that I would add to all of your scenes to really get, or not all of your scenes, but all of your AR elements to create your hyper reality scene. Okay, so that's a text. Let's see, what else could we create here? In the basic 3D camera tracking tool I showed, or camera tracking tutorial, I showed you kind of those caution lines in the ground. So that's essentially the same thing that's happening right here. Okay, so check out that tutorial to find out how to create this little arrows on the ground effect. And then so the recharging the batteries effect that I did here, let me show you kind of what's going on. So back into our scene, okay, what I would do is click on your layer that we did the 3D camera tracker on. Find a place where you're going to put your recharge battery screen and click it, and then let's try to find a good plane to throw that screen on. Okay, and I'm going to, let's see, probably put it over here, right click, and this time I'm going to create a solid. Okay, now that you have your solid, put it into a place where it looks like your finger is swiping the screen. So I'm going to throw it in the Z space a little bit, rotate it on the Y axis, and rotate it on the Z to get it nice and straight up and down, and then bring it up a bit. Okay, and now you can just scale it up to a point that looks good to you. And now really all you have to do is create your recharged battery screen. Now how I did that was I created a new composition. Okay, so you can go into composition and go to new comp, and I just did a 1080 by 1080 screen and called it, you know, recharge batteries screen. And I created my whole element here. Okay, so really quickly I'll just recharge your batteries. Create this really quickly and scale this down. Okay, and then what we'll do, what else did I do here? Okay, and then I created a, you know, I don't want to bore you guys with how I created this batteries thing, so I'm going to, let's just pretend, let's just pretend that this is the battery. Okay, we have our battery here, and then we will need one more we'll need a bar in here, so I'll create a white bar to show that we only have one bar of battery left. Okay, so I created my battery, and then one more, the swiper, right? So I have the swiper right here, and I'll make that red, and then another, let's turn this stroke down to 0, we don't need a stroke, and then another box for where your finger will click and drag, right? Okay, so this will be the dragging button, right? So I'll go back into our composition, and then what I'll do is I'll find that recharge battery screen that we just created. I'll click, drag it right on top of the track solid, and hold down the option key and let go, and then boom, you've got your screen already in there and it's tracked to your scene. Okay, so this is a really useful way of, you know, and then all you have to do is just scale it up, right, to make sure that it's the right size, and then make sure that your finger is on the dot. So then I'll just move this on the y-axis, move it over, and then the finger will, okay, just like that. And then another step that you'd obviously have to do is duplicate your base layer. So Command D, bring that to the top, and then create a mask for your hand. And let me kind of show you what I did here. So as you can see, I used the pen tool to mask out my hand, and I just put that right here as finger. So this is that layer right here, and then I just keyframed it. So I'll hit U to show you all of my keyframes for the mask path. Okay, so all you have to do is keyframe your mask path, and then every couple of frames just make sure you move the mask to wherever your finger goes, right? Okay, cool. And that's how you create your recharge batteries look. Another thing that I did was change the colors of the recharge battery as it goes from low battery to fully charged, right? So as I slide this over, I start to gain bars and change the color from red to green. So if I hit the U button, you can see the keyframes for what I did there. Let me just close that down. These are the same effects that we did on that Katsumoto text. And then if I double click on this composition, you can see how I changed the coloring, okay, of this element from red in the beginning to green when I keyframed this button sliding over. Okay, so you guys can do the same. So basically, the nice thing about this augmented reality look is it's actually pretty simple to do. If you know how to do basic keyframe editing, basic animation in After Effects, and you know how to use the 3D camera tracker tool, then you know how to create a hyper reality scene. And that's the awesome part. It really comes down to patience and how many elements you want to add to the scene, right? The more elements you have, the longer it's going to take you to edit this and create what you want to get. So based off of what we just created, how to create that Katsumoto text that I just showed you, that's how you create everything in this scene, right? So the $1.99 to enter the bridge is the same exact way, All you have to do is select your 3D tracker plane that you want to use, and then put your element into the scene. And then guys, you have just created a nice looking hyper reality Blade Runner type look, and you're good to go. If you have any questions about this, I know I kind of brushed through this quickly, or not so. This wasn't much of a step-by-step tutorial. It was more of showing you how to create a element in this 3D world and then applying that same technique to all of the elements that you end up adding, right? This travel to Los Angeles and all that stuff. So, because it's basically it's a rather simple effect. I'm going to be doing some more movie magic tricks, so stay tuned for more of those on the tutorial on our VideoFort channel, and we'll have more fun.
Alright guys, so I hope that this covers the basics of how to create a hyper reality scene. Now I know we just covered the title aspect and then, adding solids and replacing those solids with your AR or augmented reality elements. That's really the basics of creating these hyper reality short films or movies that you may have seen on YouTube or on social media. But if you guys have more questions about hyper reality, how to create little augmented reality objects maybe on your desk or whatever the question you guys may have, please let us know in the comments section. I'll check it out, hopefully get you a tutorial on that. If this tutorial helped you out at all, please leave us a like. Remember guys, like and subscribe and let us know what we can do to help you guys out in the editing, visual effects, or filmmaking world. This is VideoFort. I'm Magic Bard, and I'll see you guys on the next one.